Victims will always be blamed and predators will always be protected under patriarchy. Let me explain. In this current patriarchal system, men are positioned as protectors and women are positioned as the protected. But this protective identity that men have is really only a farce, and it's actually the other side of the coin of the predator. Men like to see themselves as this identity as the protectors. However, they typically only protect that which they possess because patriarchy is about possession. While women typically are the true protectors because they don't identify with this hero complex, they don't identify with protecting only that which they possess. Women typically are more likely to protect the vulnerable just for the sake that they need it. As I've discussed in previous videos, patriarchy creates entitlement among men. It does create predators. When men are socialized with entitlement, where they view women as objects or something to serve them, when they see it being accepted within society and within their family systems that the women are objects that serve and are abused without consequence, then they see that as an acceptable way for society to be and for them to be. And this is what creates predators. It is not usually trauma themselves, although movies love to show that. It's usually just entitlement and it being normalized within society. There are plenty of traumatized people who go throughout society and do not victimize anyone. When you are given a position of power, which men under this society are, under this patriarchal society, are given a certain level of power over women and over children, and you use that power to prey on and exploit the vulnerable, that is the result of entitlement. It's not the result of trauma. So patriarchy creates these entitled men who end up becoming predators because this is what the capitalistic, hierarchical, patriarchal society teaches us to do. It teaches us to prey on those weaker than us so we can climb the corporate ladder, we can climb the societal ladder, right? Not to say that there isn't a healthy sort of competition. As we see within society, we do want some level of competition, right? Because that creates better products for people when there are companies that are in competition, right? At more accessible prices. But when taken to the extreme, which arguably it has been for a very long time, it condones serious violence and marginalizes those who are physically weaker, who are more vulnerable in society. So how does this all relate to victim blaming and predators and protectors being two sides of the same coin? Well, like I said, patriarchy creates predators, which in turn victimizes those who are quote unquote weaker than them or more vulnerable. And then the victims need a protector, right? And that's where men say, oh, my identity is to be the protector. I have to protect those weaker than me, especially those which I possess, is really what it is. But the reality is, a man who needs to be a savior subconsciously needs something to save you from. This is a part of a lot of men's identity, not because they actually want you to be safe, but because they want to feel like the hero. So this is when society, and especially men who identify with this hero complex, they will blame the victims. Oh, you were great. You shouldn't have been wearing a skirt so short. You got caught in a domestic abuse situation, you should have just left and you should have chosen better. Now I have to come in and save you from the bad decisions that you made. And in this way, as we can see, protectors protect patriarchy. They protect the system that makes them feel like a hero. But protection as an identity only makes sense when there's something or someone to protect you from. So this is why the argument when men say, oh, well, who's going to fight your wars for you? Well, if we live under matriarchy, what wars? They are very threatened by the idea of equality and safety as a system, because when that begins to emerge, the system that positions them to have basically everything while also getting all of the credit for being the protectors destabilizes, and the protector archetype loses its purpose. Now, I understand that this is a very idealistic way to look at the world, and I don't believe in the binary that all men are bad and all women are good. That's just not how it works. Patriarchy is a system that either men or women can buy into. Admitting harm to those who are victimized by the system or victimized by predators means that the system doesn't work and the protectors, they failed, and that is too much for their ego. So to protect the system, these protectors then blame shift onto the survivor, onto the victim. I was talking to someone in my life who is misogynistic, and he admitted that there was a matriarchy before patriarchy, but he said that clearly it doesn't work because patriarchy was able to overcome it. And I'm like, okay, whose fault is that? And he's like, well, of course, it's a system. The matriarchy as a system doesn't work. So I was like, let me get this straight. You say that patriarchy is a better system and it works because they're the ones that came out on top. And he's like, yeah, obviously. So I'm just like, okay, then genociding and graping so that you can have a person's land, that's okay, right? And he's like, oh, no, of course not. And I'm just like, that's what patriarchy is. It's taking something because you have more power. Why are we blaming the system that had more equality but was overtaken by greedy, evil people? You're basically condoning a system that is evil. And he's just like, put matriarchy in place and see how long it lasts. And I was like, well, yeah, a system of equality historically hasn't been able to exist in a world filled with greed and domination. Even if it's currently too idealistic of a system to exist in this evil world, let's not call that which is evil good simply because it came out on top. And this is the problem within society. In a system that functions on the fulcrum of women and children as the ones being exploited, victims will never have justice in the system. And they will always be forced to absorb the shame and the blame from those who have exploited them and those who have preyed on them. And under the system, predators of all kinds will always walk free of the shame that they have dumped onto the victims.